new to JavaScript, we're going to take you there. So then we're going to get into specifically what you need to know for the test.
Okay.
JavaScript, of course, gives us the ability to do some things dynamically at runtime. Things like interacting with your user interface.
Okay.
We're going to look at what a function is, how to create it.
Okay.
And then once it's created, how we're going to use it, right? How we're going to call it.
Kind of a good thing.
Yeah. We looked earlier at the canvas object. We talked about that in one of the earlier modules. And we mentioned that in order to use that canvas object, you're going to have to interact with it using JavaScript.
Yep.
We'll actually do some demos with that and show you how to do that. And then last, we'll finish off talking a little bit about working with touch interface devices, which is really important in today's development environment. So you'll want to know a little bit about that for sure.
In fact, here I've got it off screen here. My Lumia 1020. I love this thing. But you know, everything now, I want to be able to just go in and touch and so forth. And one of those little things that always drives me crazy is sites that I go to where they've got like a drop-down menu, but it's for mouse over only. So you go tap on it on your phone or on your device, and then it doesn't work. So making sure that your page can work with touch, very important. It'll make me happy, and it's all about me, right?
Yeah. Hey, there you go.
We'll go with that.
And that's a good point to bring up, though. Right? Because when you are designing for touch, you've got to consider that you're going to have smaller devices, and your controls have to be a little bit further apart than you would do with just mouse type.
Yeah, exactly.
Action. So we'll talk about all that. We'll get into it. First, though, we want to set the beginning of exactly what JavaScript is.
Okay.
And then even maybe more importantly, not only what it is, what it is not.
Yes.
When we talk about JavaScript, it is what we call loosely typed, interpreted, scripted language.
Okay.
Which means scripted.
Yeah, what does that mean?
Yeah, it just means that basically we're going to be able to read it with a human eye.
Okay.
As opposed to languages such as C#, Visual Basic, C, and those are actually compiled executable languages that are compiled in machine code.
So they're compiled into machine code. So I've got my C# and that will actually become machine code, be able to run locally. That JavaScript, it's just going to be that scripted language.
That's right.
And that's it. So it's going to be interpreted by something.
It's going to be interpreted. That's right. Okay. We also say that it's open source, and that just simply means it's available for all. You don't have to go out and purchase anything. It's open.
We can just go use it. So we don't need anything special. I don't need to spend any money to use JavaScript.
Nope.
Okay, I can write that with Notepad as well.
You can absolutely write it with Notepad.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so,
okay, I love it.
But we probably want to at least differentiate a few other terms that you might have heard. I'm going to just turn my screen black for just a second, and then I'll demonstrate some things. One of the things that I often get asked as I'm teaching is, is JavaScript like Java? You know, or another one I hear is that, JavaScript's a subset of Java. And quite simply, the answer is no. No. This is the analogy that I like to use. I like to say that JavaScript is to Java as peanut butter is to peas, right? Peanut butter and peas, both food group, JavaScript, Java, both programming languages. But peanut butter and peas don't taste the same. They don't provide the same nutritional value, and we can kind of relate that.
I don't know.
JavaScript.
A nice pea and jelly sandwich sounds like it might be. No,
I'm not feeling it.
All right. I always like to use the joke that Java and JavaScript share four things in common: the letters JAVA.
There you go. Yeah. So we want to differentiate that and make sure that our audience understands that.
Yeah.
And just kind of basically lay out some terms. So I'm going to go ahead and just type these things out on my screen because I want to make sure our audience understands this. This is important as we move forward. Don't
forget your C.
Oh, yeah. There we go. Thank you.
Yep.
When we talk about JavaScript actually happens on the client side.
Okay.
And that's important to know. Yeah.
Okay.
It's actually rendered on the client, so we're going to say that it's client side.
Okay. Yep.
Another term that we might have heard about and wondered about is jQuery. We hear that a lot. And for the test, you do need to know what jQuery is.
Okay.
Again, that's another subject. Gosh, Christopher, in fact, we have like a 2-week course, right, that we do on jQuery.
And if you don't mind my throwing in a real quick plug here, because I have to, since I work for Microsoft Learning and I'll actually be doing it, that there is an MVA that either is or is going to be, depending on when you're watching, watching this, that's going to be available. I'll actually be doing a full day on jQuery coming up here in a few weeks. Yeah. So depending on kind of when you're watching this, it'll either already be on MVA or it's going to be coming on MVA. So if you're interested in getting more into jQuery, we'll have a full 8-hour MVA for you on that.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay, so we switched back to my screen here, so I'm typing away as Christopher's mentioning that. I want to just make sure that our audience understands what jQuery is. So jQuery is actually JavaScript. You know, it's JavaScript, but it's JavaScript that's already been written for us as developers to go out and use, right? That whole idea of reusability. So you can kind of think of jQuery as just simply a library of code, open source, available for all to go in and reuse.
Yep.
For this exam, you need to understand what it is. I would say also have a pretty good understanding of maybe what that syntax would look like that you would need to put into your code to actually link into jQuery, right? But other than that, that's about all for this level. Just have an understanding of what it is and that it is available for you. Okay. Another thing that you might hear about is Node.js. Okay. That term, right? In fact, we even mentioned that our web matrix supports Node.js, right? So, okay, tell me, are you doing another course on that?
As a matter of fact, if you don't mind, another shameless plug here, is that, we've actually got a full 8 hours coming up on Node.js. That one I'm very excited about because they'll actually be covering kind of front to back of how you're going to set up Node.js on the server side, which is what Rachel's about to type out. That's kind of a server side code.
Okay, I'll just type it out as you're speaking.
Yeah, there we go. Perfect. And also incorporating that with a bit of client-side JavaScript, using some WebSockets to send messages back and forth from client to the server. So I'm very excited about that one. So again, depending on when you're watching this, it'll either be on MVA or coming soon on MVA. So Node.js. So yeah, thank you for letting me have that plug.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, because certainly we want this to be your starting point and help you prepare for this exam. But know that we do have lots of other stuff out there on MVA for you to continue on with your learning process. So you'll want to take advantage of that.
Absolutely.
But as Christopher mentioned, what Node.js is basically a platform available. We mentioned that JavaScript happens on the client side. What Node.js does is extend out our application and allows us to do some processing on the server side. That's simply what it is. So definitely you'll want to catch Christopher's topics coming up. But to make sure in preparation for the exam, you at least know what these tools.
You don't necessarily have to worry too much about exactly how to get in and start programming in Node.js, but at least understand what it does and that basic concept, and you'll be okay for the exam. Yep. All right.
Very good.
So,
another cool feature, if we go to our slide here with HTML5 that we didn't have access to before. So some of the big guys like C and C# and Visual Basic, the more traditional .NET languages, we had access to these Windows Runtime APIs, application programming interfaces, right? And you can also think of those as kind of a library of code, if you will, for us to be able to use. Now in HTML5 with JavaScript, we have access to some of this functionality that the Windows operating system allows us to do. Again, very in-depth topics for this exam. We want to make sure that we know what they are and be somewhat familiar with a few of the more exciting ones.
Yeah.
And here's a little list of the ones that I want you to specifically know about and at least know what they are. Talk about geolocation. Anybody that's used a mobile device, right, has probably...
I'm not going to break out my Lumia again. We'll leave that down there, but yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, anybody that has used a mobile device has probably used the geolocation API. It just simply goes out and gets a location using global positioning of a particular object. So for this exam, know what it is, know it exists. Be a little bit familiar with maybe some of the methods that are available for the geolocation object, right? And then we'll turn our attention to the slide to talk a little bit about web workers and web sockets. Web workers, that's a technology that allows us to put at something that's happening on a background thread. As an example, let's give it an example. What if you were doing a calculation, a rather intense calculation, and you really didn't want that to interfere with what was happening on the graphical user interface? You could shove that calculation back to a background thread, and that's what Web Workers allows us to do now in JavaScript.
Yes.
So it's pretty cool. And then probably the baby of these three technologies is WebSockets, and that's continues to evolve as we speak, but it allows us to do two-way communication. Remember, we said our application was running on a browser, and a browser doesn't typically have. By its nature, communication from endpoint to endpoint, from client to server. Well, using these WebSockets allows us to establish that two-way communication.
Exactly.
So I think that's in a nutshell, really, what we're expecting on this level of tests. Understand that they're available. Spend a little time looking at maybe some of the methods and events associated. In fact, on the slide, I have got a great resource for you. This is a fantastic resource you should explore that gives a very simple explanation of APIs and goes into detail a little bit, not too much, just about what you need to know, just the right amount for this exam.
Perfect. I like it.
All right, let's get into it. Let's get into the code.
Yeah, let's do some code.
There we go. We can't get away from it, can we, Chris? We've got to do
Hello World. Yep.
So this is an example first of JavaScript, and it's what we call inline JavaScript. We're going to type it right into our HTML. We did that with CSS, right?
Yes.
We saw some mistakes you could get into.
Yep.
You could also do that with here.
Yep.
But we are going to start with the basics, because when you're looking at other people's code, you may see this, and it's perfectly fine to do it. In this case, we've just got one line of code, so we wrote it in JavaScript. But as you begin developing your application and it becomes more complex, you'll definitely want to separate that out. But for starters, we will start here with just some basics.
Now, on the example that Rachel had up a second ago, all that was going to do is just simply print out that "Hello World Wide Web" on the screen, and that was it.
That was it. We weren't in control of where it was going to go.
Exactly.
Just done.
Here, print. And that, unfortunately, of course, is a little bit limiting, because what we're looking for with JavaScript is interactivity, to be able to interact with the user, interact with the interface. So we need to be able to go in and find different items, different elements on the page. And that is what the next slide that Rachel had up there is showing. So if we go back to the slide, there we go. What you're going to notice there is that little document.getElementById. And then you'll also notice, up at the top is that paragraph with an ID. So you'll notice ID equals demo, and you'll notice getElementById demo. Well, if I call getElementById, what do you think it's going to go find? It's going to go find the element that has that ID, and you see that ID right there.
Okay, so that's what I'm doing here then. I'm going to go ahead and give this an ID so I can interact with it with my code.
Exactly.
All right?
Exactly. Yep. And then the next little thing that you're going to notice is at the very beginning is that little document. And
this guy right here?
Yep. And document is the document. That is your HTML page, and that's how I can start interacting with the page. So, and don't worry about going back to the previous slide, but the reason that we could say document.write and have it print something out on the page is because of the fact that document is that page. So if I want to go find something on the page, I can do that right off of that document element. And again, going back to the slide here, the last little thing is that inner HTML. So that allows you to change the HTML that's going to be inside of that paragraph tag and set that to be something. And in this case, when Rachel put together the slide, what she did was she added in that little date call, and that's, of course, going to get today's date.
Yep, built-in function available to us.
Yep, and then just put that right into the paragraph tag.
Simple as that. One line of code. And we just wrap that around a script begin and end tag.
Yep.
Let's do a demo. Let's go in and actually first start off basic with just writing some code right inside of our HTML.
Yep.
And then we'll look at
getting
actually doing some, a little fancier, doing some updating. What do you say? You want to take this one, Christopher?
I felt a little lonely over here. I want to write some code.
You're getting
I
antsy.
can do it.
Okay,
Yeah.
you're getting antsy.
All right.
Let's give it over to you.
So let's come on over to my system. There's my system.
Okay. Oh, good. So we're
And
going to do it in Visual Studio.
Yeah, we're going to do it in Visual Studio. And this is going to serve as kind of a nice compare and contrast between WebMatrix and Visual Studio.
I love it.
And Visual Studio is certainly more powerful than WebMatrix, has some more features. But again, WebMatrix is still a fantastic tool, and I don't want to underplay WebMatrix.
And it's got some features that other